86. And I am joined today by one of my very closest, very best, and one of my least gorgeous friends, Mr. John Scrivens. I've put the wrong name on your thing, John. Vamp for me. How you doing? Talk to me.
I was all right, and then about 30 seconds before we're going live, you started singing, and I'm just completely tilted by it now because it was so beautiful. And you thought I was going to say something mean.
That's how you kept a wife. Right. That's how you kept a wife all these years. Yeah, constant flattery.
I mean it.
So welcome everyone to the show. Thank you to the podcast listeners. Please stay hydrated. Thank you to everyone that was working on Patreon. Literally couldn't live without you. So you are my beating heart and soul. And thank you to everyone who joins me live, because when you do that, I get to chat to you, and I effing love it. Yeah, because I really do. I'd like to show you, by the way, everyone. I'd like to show you my Lord of Chains I've been painting, but I can't because he literally is made of see-through paint. So, disaster. But it's going really well. I actually, can I tell you something I did yesterday, John, before I get into find out how you are? I watered down a wash, and I've never done that before because I felt like that was a coward's way of painting. Yeah.
So you made a glaze?
No, I just washed something. But you know when you wash something and it's all a bit streaky and horrible? Yeah. I did that, but it didn't go streaky and horrible. But like it's just it's a teeny bit dark. And for me, that's not quite as like. Do you know what I mean? I'm not a very subtle character or tactful. I don't think either of those two things could be applied to me. They're not my keywords. Like, I don't really get, like, geopolitics. I need the Ent in Lord of the Rings to smash down the machinery, of Isengard for me to be like, okay, I get it. The trees are killing the machines. The machines killing the trees. I understand. Industry and nature are at war. So washing down a wash doesn't really feel...
It's very subtle, right?
It's a bit too subtle.
I find that with painting, I'm just like, I'll just slap it on, and it's like, less is more sometimes, right? You can actually get a better look by just not absolutely going ham with a massive, thick, clobby brush of wash. Although that's how all my custodies look, and they look great.
Yeah. Don't you tell me how to subtly enjoy myself. Yeah. So first thing I need to do is apologise for this morning. I didn't organise myself an opponent, is what's occurred. My truth cards on the table, and I was also pretty exhausted. I know. I was also pretty exhausted, so I've had a long week. So some days
be kind to yourself, Rob. You've just got to be kind to yourself.
Yeah, sometimes I'm going to fuck up. But I did rewrite my list last night, which was pretty cool. So tomorrow's Battle Breakfast will be in full effect. I'll be playing Hayden from Australia, which is very exciting. I'm running a bit of Be'lakor. So I apologise about that this morning. I'm just going to put my hands out and say I'm sorry. And tonight, John, after this show, if anyone is particularly interested, I will be at 6 p.m. today, British Summertime. I'm getting interviewed by Dave from Mini Wargaming itself. That's right. He said, Rob, we're a family-friendly show. I was like, no problem. Probably won't be talking about pickling placentas on your show then, which is a reference to yesterday's show. Anyway, John, tell me, Twitch chat, how have you been? What have you been up to?
I have been doing lots of pictures, actually. I've been quite busy kind of getting on with my backlog of artwork. I drew a Slan Mage last night, which was quite fun.
Oh, nice.
It was quite difficult, and I enjoyed the challenge, though. That was for Anthony Paul Castro. Yeah.
Why was
his big floaty throne.
Why was that difficult to, like, what challenges did you face?
Well, I think it's just, like, rolls of, like, flesh are quite hard to draw without just making something look bulgy and unnecessarily fat, if that makes sense.
You got a mirror, bruv. I'm so sorry. It was just... I'm so sorry. I mean, I could have said I could send you a picture of myself. Another also very viable gag. Yeah, I'm sorry. While you take a moment on that, I sort of say big shout out to Owen Jackson in the chat, who said the reason I didn't actually play Battle Breakfast this morning was because I got crushed with Sylvaneth, and so I cowered it out from ever playing War Games again.
So you've actually lost to Sylvaneth?
Yeah, I did.
I thought that was basically not a book.
It isn't. They're still shit. I don't care what anyone says. Like, they're still shit. But Owen played a blinder, which was really
well,
good.
it was Owen. It was the pilot then, right? So that means that you're a really bad pilot and he's a really good pilot.
Yeah.
But it's like other extremes. Like,
Yeah,
if he's
I'll accept
really
that.
good enough to use a shit book.
I'll
What book were you
accept
using,
that.
Rob? What were
Yeah,
you using?
I'll accept that. I was using Slaves to Darkness. Yeah,
But no
they're
excuse then.
no, I know. I
It's like
absolutely
losing
know.
to me.
It wasn't the
not gonna
best.
happen.
It wasn't the best, but it was a fun time actually. I do deserve a medal. I think that's true. So hello, MJ Pegasus, Debolt, what up? Chris, hashtag Treegate, War Master, how are you? War Machine, love you all. MJ Pegasus, thanks for being here. Dude, our day. Oh my God, yes. Let's go.
Oh yes.
Oh,
Dude, our
yeah.
day.
Wood end spoon. Oh my God, that's what they should do. That's what they should call it. The silver. They shouldn't call it the wooden spoon events. Just the Silverneth spoon. That's what you get.
It's a wildwood spoon.
Yeah. So, John, I've asked you how you are. You're doing some painting, which is exciting. But I know that if you were to pick a game, you'd pick 40k over Age of Sigmar, right?
Yes, I think that's safe to say.
And how are you feeling about the current changes? Same question to the Twitch chat. How are you feeling at the minute?
I'm pensive, I think is probably the best way to put it.
Okay, how come?
It's like anything. It's like if you're trying to judge something by, say, you've got a puzzle and you've only got, say, 5 out of the 100 pieces out, you can't really judge that picture and go, oh, that's a shit picture, because you can't see the whole thing. And at the moment, I'm feeling like we're seeing so many little bits of the overall thing, I can't really get excited too much, because people are like, oh, tanks are going to be great now. I'm like, but are they? We don't know.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of that is completely fair. It's really hard not to be like excited by the.
I'm trying not to.
Yeah, by the
that's the thing.
hyperbole.
Hype train broke my heart last time. Some idiot kept showing me battle reports every day in the lead up to 8th edition and got me well hyped, and I bought far too much plastic. So I'm trying to avoid that.
Don't criticize me because I was good at my job, baby. Like...
I know, right? It was good. It got me engaged. I wouldn't be probably here right now if it wasn't for those streams, and that you've got a lot to answer for, Rob.
That's fine. I don't mind that. That's fine. We all had to start somewhere, which is nice. Yeah, like I think I'm trying to take the hyperbole with a pinch of salt. And actually, one of the things I always try and do is read between the lines. I think that's a key element. I think one of the most interesting parts of the 40k stuff that we've seen so far is the huge impact that we're actually going to see on hordes. I think that is the key element. Like, so there seems to be a clear methodology that they are attaching to not having hordes be good or as viable, and then making the game more elite, including with the board size reduction. We've got like a very dynamic space. The thing that I don't know how I feel about that though, because I get it. I get that everyone wants their tank fighting their dreadnought, but I don't really want it to become Mech Warrior. Do you know what I mean?
It should be a battlefield with a mixture of stuff. To me, it's always about having some troops, a couple of tanks, and not just being all of one thing. That's kind of the theme.
That's a problem, though, isn't it? Though, because if they want to sell a ton of models, they need a very diverse range. And if you want a very diverse range, you need you want to sell 3 Predators, or you want to say 3 Repulsors. You want to sell them. Exactly. You want to sell the 3. That's the max.
That's like 180 quid. That's great for them, right?
Yeah, and every Marine player, you want that off of them. But they also need to be viable while also keeping X units viable. So I think I feel sorry for them as a business for trying to create like a holistic release set of rules, while at the same time trying to maintain their business. And they obviously haven't gone that way. They've gone the other way, which is just like, do what the fuck we want.
I feel like they're missing the mark on Horde. To me, a lot of the problem with Horde stuff isn't the bodies and having all that quantity of stuff. It's you roll the dice, you roll, say, 150 dice, it then turns into 30 hits, with maybe a reroll in the between, and then becomes 14 saves type of thing. It scales in such a way that you're doing a lot of work for very little output.
But then, let's ask ourselves.
Like Space Marines are the same. It's like just throwing lots of dice and re-rolling it is inefficient.
Yeah, but let's ask ourselves a question as gamers, which maybe we don't want to. It's the Honest Wargamer after all. Let's be true to ourselves, right? One of the most fun experiences I've had painting, which is weird, is painting 80 tech thralls from Forge World, right? I don't know why. They're all mono-posed, the same fucking model 80 times. But, I mean, they're different, kind of. Like, there's some bits moving around. But for some reason, I don't know why, I found that one of the most enjoyable experiences I've ever done. Whereas, I think recently, one of the things I least enjoyed painting was a Gaunt Summoner. I was like, fuck this, I hate this. But I'm not a painter, and I won't be. But I wanted to play the Tech Thralls at a tournament. I want to play the Gaunt Summoners at a tournament. Yeah. My real question is let's pick an arbitrary number at the minute of 100 models. Let's say you play Age of Sigmar with 100 models, and let's say you play 40k with 80. Yeah. Right. Let's just say that. So, my question to you and everyone else is: let's say that's cut in half. Yeah. Let's say in order to play a game of 40k, I only need to paint 40 models. And in order to, on average, obviously there's knights and other stuff, I only need to paint 40 models. And in order to play Age of Sigmar, I only need to paint 80 models. Is that really so much of a problem for us? Because
I think it's nice you can turn around a new faction quite quickly, right? Like Custodes, when they first dropped, everyone was just spraying them gold because it was a quick 20 model army, job done. And it was a positive, right?
Yeah, I think maybe Custodes maybe would have opened their eyes to that. Like, they could create a range, and I say Custodes and Canhammer Darren turns up. How is it? Like,
did we say it 3 times?
I'm going to say it outside later and see if he just appears via magic. Custodes. Anyway, but yeah, I think the lesson that they can have taken from Custodes, and maybe even Kharadron Overlords would be another good example. I think. Yeah. Death Deepkin's a bad example because it's a poor battle tome where they just sold a lot of eels. But my point is like that elite tier of army. I don't think I have to spend quite as much money on it. Or maybe that's that's me tricking myself. I feel like I don't spend loads versus a horde. Like 30 Witch Elves is 120 quid. Whereas...
And that's a lot of fiddly figures to build as well.
Yeah, whereas the same in Sequitors, even though they suck now, is not as much, right, points-wise. So I guess the real question I'm asking myself is, do we mind there being less bodies on the board? I feel like, if I'm being honest with myself, I don't know why I feel like I want loads of dudes. Or dudettes, or whatever or gribbly monsters.
Because we're hoarders, we like having lots of stuff on the table, right? It's nice to have all your toys out. But sometimes, what I found that was almost lost between 7th and 8th was that whole kind of, you actually had to make decisions, I found in 7th, where it was like, I can't take all the stuff, so what do I have to sacrifice in my list to make it work? And it was all about a bit of a balance. Whilst towards the end in 8th, I was finding you could just have every little toy you wanted and just, there you go.
Okay. Oh yeah, I think that's fair.
I think that was the problem. It was like you get to the point where there wasn't any kind of things you had to cut to make space for things, and if you did, it was just like, well, this is so much better than the thing I've cut anyway, so I'm not missing out really.
Yeah. Okay, I can understand that. So Scott B says, also big shout out to Colonel Cabbage, Warmaster, Jonah Alibi, JBM, Deviant Immortal, and Colonel Cabbage being here. He says, as long as different factions remain competitive, I'm not too fussed how many models are needed. It's slightly fewer Marines is not likely to be a big deal, but if the GC of the Cult Army is halved, that could be tough. And I think that's also true. Colonel Cabbage, you could also cut the game time by cutting the number of weapons each unit has. You'd also save about 30 minutes per repulsor.
Which is what a lot of the newer units have got, right? They tend to be 2 loadout options, and you get just those options.
Look at the repulsor. That's not true.
Well, ignoring that, like your general infantry stuff, it tends to be like aggressors. You've got the flame ones or the bolt ones. I think the tanks are a really bad example, but
I think the tanks are a bad example. But also, if tanks are get phenomenally better, we might see a points tick up of tanks, right? And I agree with you. I feel like their design philosophy has gone more mono. This unit is this weapon loadout, or this weapon is this other loadout. If we look at the current I suppose if we look at the cutting edge, the Adeptus Mechanica stuff that's coming out, they've got a dual kit flying unit that's one weapon loadout or one weapon loadout. They have the cavalry unit that is one loadout or one loadout. They have I feel like they've done that for a long time, so this isn't brand new.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it's a positive, and I do feel like I wouldn't want to paint 150 of those flying dudes, but they're clearly not meant for that. They're clearly an elite version, right? Anyway, Because we all love fucking little dudes, says Colonel Cabbage. I agree. In reference, of course, to anyone watching Twitch T's and S's, to actually liking little dudes on the tabletop, not anything else. Hermanist, it's surprising when you see some of your newer kits that are clearly showing wear and quite heavy lines, sub 12 months old. Oh, I wonder what Dude Our Day's talking about with Hermanista. I'll find out. I wonder if they have changed the composition of the plastic on the new AdMech. The Petraxi I've seen seems softer. I did not know that. I don't know. John, have you noticed anything like that?
Not massively, but I haven't got any of the new stuff, so perhaps it's because things are a little bit thinner in places. Like the wings probably have got more flex to them because of the shape as well.
Oh, really?
I don't know.
But surely you would just still have it be flat, right?
Because they've got kind of like a bit of a curve to them, so maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
Apparently, the science behind the plastic, though, when people say about the coloured plastic, it's no different, apparently, composition-wise. But people seem to say quite often the red stuff tends to snap, so...
Maybe it's one of those like psychosomatic things. I'm not sure. Someone would have to do a test, and it would have to be an independent source. Well, so I mean, has anyone got any thoughts on that? Like the game size being reduced isn't, I feel like, a negative. Again,
no.
I don't feel like the game is problematic because of the number of models that you have on the board.
No.
I feel like the game is problematic because of the number of rules that interact in a very negative way.
Yes.
Which
and I think Space Marines compounded that to me. Playing them a bit, kind of that whole kind of, look, I've got to re-roll everything every 5 minutes, was just kind of like brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm hoping we see that go away.
Yes.
A question to you, John, is do you call a bread roll a cob, a bap, or a balm, or a bread roll?
I actually call them bread rolls because I'm from the south, which means I say everything in a stupid way, apparently.
I like how you were like, I'm in the correct way. That's what you were going to say. Yeah?
No, I remember like one of my local bakers was just like, do you want a cob? I'm like, a what? Bless you.
Apparently in the north, a cob means kissing. I was like, do you want to cob off? I was like, I don't want a bread roll in my mouth. Yeah.
To me, a BAP associates that you're going to have
boobs,
chips in it or something, and make or even that, yeah. But to me, it's often going to be something like a chip butty in a BAP. A BAP is like a burger bun to me, not a roll.
I fucking love those Canadians, man. God knows what those conversations are about. So Mima says it has to have a different... okay. So JBM says smaller game into sizes it definitely makes it more accessible. I just hope armies like Orcs don't lose that horde theme. I think just to think tank it, which is what we're doing today, and have a discussion. Yeah. I think one of the things that we need to also have a conversation. Do I mean cop off? No, cob off is where they say cob off some places. Old boy Phil, I know. Like, it's wild. Not just the North says sorry again. Apparently, what theme is Metgub spam?
So that's something I'm quite adamant about as well. Is Orcs only working as a horde thing was a bit frustrating to some extent because the other builds were not anywhere as good.
Well, okay, so like
almost punished, right? So it's maybe that's opening it up then, perhaps.
Well, let's take that conversation because I think let's frame it in the right way. Yeah. Elite units perform well in an elite game where you can only have a small amount of elite stuff. Yeah, smaller stuff, elite's better. 1,000 points, I'm going to take dreadnoughts for example. Yeah. That's a terrible example, but do you know what I mean? However, like the opposite of elite is if your stuff is crap. I'll take a good example of like a Dakka Jet. Like it's okay. Like it is okay. It's cheap enough though. It's cheap that you can have quite a few of them and you can just do a lot of shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when your stuff is crap, you just have a lot of it that does the same job as having one good thing that does something really well. Yeah. So you've got the same kind of output. There's the balance. The problem is for armies like Orcs, GC Cults, Tyranids to a degree, ignoring monsters. When you have armies that need a lot of dudes to equal out to the few dudes who are really good, if they make it so you can't have as many dudes. So like I look at all of the Orc units and I'm like, okay, if I take a shit ton of kilocans, like a shit ton, like 20, I'm like, that's actually a lot of wounds at a pretty good toughness, which I can give a 5-up invulnerable save, that might be viable, right? Yeah. But their output is pretty crap, Yeah, because like so I'm trying to pay for the wounds because I need. Whereas if I do the same with obviously Space Marines, Custodes, whatever it might be, then I mean like so that's my point. That's what I'm trying
Yeah.
to get at. So I am quite worried for armies like Orcs, GC Colts because like having 18 mech guns is quite funny, right? Like and is really cool and really viable in a game.
And they can move and shoot now.
Yeah, they can move and shoot now. But having like Thunderfire cannons, which just like are super elite and can do what the shit they want, right? Or a Dreadnought, which is again super elite and can do what it wants. Like if I don't get as many, I can't do as well. If that makes sense. So yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
Then it becomes a trade-off of how you approach some of these units. Like, do you put them in transports? Are you punished for them being in a transport? And it becomes a completely different side of the list building, right?
Yeah. I think it's honestly very interesting, and I am a little bit worried, especially for my one true love, which is Orcs. Honest Wargamer question: instead of moving points up, why didn't they just drop the game size to 1500? Or is that because we wouldn't need to buy into the app or the new index? I think you have to understand what levers they're trying to pull. Like, and if anyone doesn't think you're going to have to rebuy all of the codexes that they've released again over the next 3 years, then we definitely are going to have to.
It's an ecosystem. It's not just Games Workshop. A lot of companies model it around that.
I mean, not as much though. Like,
you
not
get
as much.
games, other tabletop companies now that do this sort of situation. X-Wing had a big thing where you had to basically buy upgrade kits to make it viable. So, and that was a very clumsy approach they did that in. So.
Yeah, I think the current system that I like, although there's obviously conversations, the best system I've heard of and I've seen involved so far is Marvel Crisis Protocol. Their setup seems decent enough, but we won't get into that right now.
Yes.
Jonah Alibi says, I like, or Jonah Alibi says, I like hordes of models. The number of models isn't what slows games down. It's when people don't know the rules, when the game starts lagging. I think that's fair. So I'm happy with more or less any points value, says MJ Pegasus, and I think I'm about to super agree with this statement. As long as the things I'm spending the points on are worth those points, and the conversation on what that means to different people is a big one.
Yeah.
So does this mean killer cans can be good against Wargamer Dad? Maybe. I'm not sure. Hey, Brad Glover, hope you're well. Hey, Daisy Duke the dog, also hope you're well. What up, everyone? I guess that's fair. I think, John... I think one of the things that I'd like to see, and I'd love to know what you think, I'd like to see is more parity inside an army book, and then also with the game as a whole. I'd like some internal and external balance. And what that means is I don't even necessarily need a fair gaming space. I'll give you an example. If I just took a shit ton of orc trucks, with just units of 10 boys in, and that was effectively my army, it doesn't matter that the points for those are good or bad, or even the data sheets are good or bad, or the stratagems are good or bad. It's just a crap army. It just doesn't.
They don't even do their points worth of damage if they even get stuff.
Well, it just doesn't do anything, right? Like it's just crap, right? What I'm trying to get at is compositionally, it's not smart, right?
Yes.
Whereas having some looters to do some shooting, some tank busters, some mecha dreads, and you think, okay, I've got a variety of stuff now. I should be able to engage in the game in a variety of ways. I think the problem that we have at the minute is you look at a unit and you think, well, that's just shit, and I'll never take it.
Yes, it's very black and white, and it becomes, rather than you going, right, I'm going to switch out this unit that's doing this role for this unit, even though it's not as good, but it'll still do the role well enough, it becomes, no, that's not even considerable. It's like, why would you take orc bikes in a list? They've got, they're not even a choice anymore for their points. They just die. You could just take more boys, and that was always the problem in 8th. Is you look at it and go, could I just take more boys?
Yes. So Ipaka says big Cygor energy. I think that's the facts.
Yes, good example. Yeah, something that is a really nice model, but you never get to play with it because it'll just suck.
Yeah, like, so the speed of the game is an issue, but more importantly, my collection being invalidated in a competitive sense.
Yes,
is
I'm fine with it shifting a little bit, but when you essentially lose what made an army fun, like great example, 7th to 8th orc bikes went from being the only way to play orcs in a competitive kind of way, other than just a massive horde, and then became completely pointless. It was just an army that was gone, which was a shame, because I'd still like to play with them.
Yeah, so I think we haven't seen anything to address that so far in the information we've seen. So we'll see. Like, and I mean, like, I was thinking about that this morning, like the volume of information that they're going to have to process and deal with. One of the conversations that came up recently was for Age of Sigmar in the future. Big shout out to Simon. I was having this chat with the South London Legion guys. He was like, well, what would you do if in Age of Sigmar the points went up by 20%? Like, let's say we now played at 3,000 points. Right? So you can have more granularity. Like, so is this worth 170 points or 180 points? Or now it's like, is this worth 170 or 250 points, right? There's like you can have more variance in how much something costs. That's great. My question to you lot is, if points went up, or if the points variance went up to 3,000 points, both game systems, what's your initial gut reaction? How do you feel about it?
You're not going to get a game done in an evening, to me.
But it's the same. It's the same volume of models.
Psychologically, just because it says more like the points, without thinking about it too deeply, my brain was just like, that's a lot more points. Because we're almost trained that 2,000 points is a full army at the moment in my head.
So you hear 3,000 points and you think the game is going to be bigger, even though it won't be bigger. Even though everything gets...
Just as an initial reaction, without thinking too much into it, my brain went, oh, that's bigger. Ugh. But that's that whole weird thing I think that wargamers have of like, oh, that's changed. No, it's an obstacle. It's changed. No thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for me, I played Heresy for quite a while. Yeah. So like 3,000 points seems fine because in Heresy everything was meant to die, so you just had bigger armies, which was fine.
And then in reverse, why do they need to be 110 points? Why aren't they just 11 points?
Honestly, I think one of the worst things about 40k army list building is that this gun is 7 points and this gun is 8 points. I think that can fuck off.
You can never quite get to 2,000, even if you're being really clever.
Yeah, but they're not even good at it. They're like, I'll give you a good example. The Transonic Arquebus for Adeptus Mechanicus at one point was 50 points. It was like, this gun is 50 points. I think then it went down to 25.
It's as good as a las cannon by that definition.
Yeah, and then it's like, then it went down to 25, and then it went down to like, fuck knows what it is now. Yeah,
but they give it to you.
No, they don't. Like it's still like 15 or so points. But my point is it was overcosted by 50%. So the concept that make all weapons free. I think that's my running.
Built into the data slate.
Yeah,
extent, right?
Yeah. Like I think it makes no sense to we talked about this before on the show, but a las cannon on a tank is way more effective than a las cannon on one infantry dude because it's
even
easy
more
to get
so potentially now.
Yeah. So do you want to play with power level? I mean, obviously that's what I'm saying. No,
well,
that's what Age of Sigmar does.
Age of Sigmar does that because you've got, especially in some of the examples, if it's different enough of a loadout, like Kurnoth Hunters, they've got different data sheets now, right? So they've got different points to reflect the weapons.
Oh no, they do. They do. Yeah, they do.
They changed that. So as an example, you've just got them as different points for the different loadout, and that's that.
Yeah. I wonder if
that's needed.
I wonder if it's somehow just the 40. They're worried that the 40k community wouldn't accept that as army building that's done well, like because I feel like army building in Age of Sigmar is done well. Like, and there is a great.
I want a tactical squad with everyone with different guns, though, Rob.
Oh,
that's what people seem to go instantly. Their defense. Oh, but I want that unit to have all the different loadouts from all the different guys in a weird sort of way. It's just unnecessarily complicated to me.
And again, we pointed out, I think that they haven't nailed the rules spot on. Anyway, interesting. So what's yesterday's article that we saw for 40k? What did we... Hey, K-Dread! Yes, K-Dread. What did we see? What were the updates from yesterday's rules? Oh, can I just say Ted Casablanca, thanks for subscribing. Yeah? We'll always have Twitch.
Oh, God, I got that reference.
It's rare you get a Casablanca reference.
Yeah. Or not a misappropriated one as well, where people say, play it again, Sam, and you're just like, what? Okay.
Oh, big shout out to my friend North of North London. He's a gentleman and a scholar. We know each other IRL. Scott B says people desperately need to choose between 4 slightly different types of bolter. Like, I need the difference, John.
Yeah. Well, ironically, I think at the moment the bolt rifles, they're not even priced differently for normal infantry. It's only on characters that it costs an extra point for a Stalker pattern bolt rifle. So it's just like, it's completely stupid.
Talk to me. This is the important one. Talk to me about Hellblasters, which have never been good. Yeah, it's just like, which version of the plasma gun do you have? And I'm like, don't matter.
They all look the same.
They all look the same. They all basically do the same, and they all suck. So, I mean, they're okay.
They're still expensive. I think the problem is if they were a little bit cheaper, you'd get the output on them. But they just stir a target.
Yeah,
that's my experience as a Dark Angels player that loves plasma.
Hey, Stop Hammer Time. What's up, fools? The can wall is... he's excited about Killer Can. So, John, what happened in the article that we saw yesterday?
So, basically, there's a really long paragraph that's called Big Guns Never Tire, which basically says vehicles or monsters can make attacks with ranged weapons, even if that unit's within engagement range of an enemy unit. They can only make such attacks against enemy units if it is within engagement range. So basically, if you're in combat, you can shoot stuff you're in combat with, but you can then allocate one of your other guns to shoot something else outside of combat on the condition that you shoot the other stuff first at the combat and kill the stuff in combat.
Yes. It's basically the same as AOS.
Which I think it makes sense, right? Because if you're this big giant tank, your turret at the top's not going to just go, we can't do anything now. They're going to still be shooting, right?
Well, there's actually something buried in there, in that wordy ruling, which is really exciting for me, as someone who has reviewed every codex and battle tome that they've done for a long time. And this is really important. Yep. They thought of an instance of a problematic thing occurring, and they bake that into the rules. And what I mean by that is, someone is going, well, actually, if I only need to kill 1 wound here with all of my weapons, but all of my other shots I want to assign over there, how do I do that? Because baked into the core rules might be you need to assign all the weapons or something similar, right? Yeah. So then they thought about that problem ahead of time, which is amazing, because
this is a problem before, right? Because if you were trying to say shoot a character, for example, you couldn't target it, shoot with one weapon, killing the thing that's in front of it, and then kill the character. You had to just allocate anything that was a valid target at that point.
Yes.
So that's the entire the subtlety they've changed now.
Yeah. So then they've thought about it, and then they've gone, we're going to write that down. Now, 2 of those things are massive. Either they've thought about it in the past and haven't written it down, or they just haven't thought about it and never wrote it down. Yeah. But we're seeing a 2-step increase, in my opinion. Yeah, which is
positive, right?
Oh my God, John!
It's one of those little subtleties that suddenly just changes the game in some respects to me.
Dude, I know you have to declare all your shooting at one go, but if you have to declare all your shooting at one go for a valid target, what they've done is they've thought about the problem that you could want to assign it to something else. There's obviously a risk-reward mechanic in there, like, if I don't kill that guy, I won't get to shoot my weapons, etc. But they thought about a problem and achieved it. And I am like, and honestly, if there's nothing else that gives me hope for this edition, it's that so far. That's the thing I've seen that makes me think, do you know what? Yeah, maybe you're not. Maybe
it gives me some hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a little. I'm trying not to get excited, but I'm a little hopeful, because it's those interactions that were could be quite fun, right? Where you're like, I'm splitting my fire, just 2 valid targets, splitting my fire. Let's see if I can manage to kill that or not. And I've over-egged it and I've wasted some shots on it, but I secured the kill, right? So having that kind of trying to gamble whilst you're thinking about your target priority is quite fun.
Well, I also think that it required them, which I assume they've never done in the past, to have got the models out and have gone, oh, look at this unique situation. Like, to have played it through, not just written it. Does that make sense? Whereas,
yes.
And maybe they've listened to playtesters. Maybe the playtesters have pushed back on that and have gone, here's a specific situation you need to create some wording for ahead of time. So, I think, I'm really pro that, and I want to talk about it.
The one interaction that's similar to that I hope they're going to resolve is that whole, you can't shoot this character that's in the open because there's a unit hidden in this ruins that you're not physically able to see, which means you can't shoot that guy. Because to me, that just seems bananas.
I want characters to be targetable. I'm just going to say it right now.
Just make a -1 to hit, and have maybe some sort of lookout thing if they're close to a unit like an Age of Sigmar, right?
Yeah, or maybe hit on 6s or something. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Something, just make it so they're not punished, but at the same time, they're not invincible.
Yeah,
because otherwise it becomes that weird interaction thing.
It's weird. Yeah. Sergeant Rolf says there's also the thing that Blast can't shoot into melee, so the Sponson heavy bolters could clear out the grots and still allow the battle cannon to fire at something else. It's pretty solid, and it also feels more thematic, right? It's a good. The
only
change.
Interaction there that doesn't work for me straight off the bat, it might be wrong, is heavy flamers are heavy. You'd want them to be shooting people in combat with you, but you never know.
They're not Blast though, are they? Blast. They've said that Blast is going to be Blast is going to be a type.
Yeah.
Yeah, Blast is a type that they're going to...
See, I'm seeing Blast in my head and thinking about those lovely little templates that caused arguments. I don't miss them.
Irish Minotaur says, well, the Blast weapon can't be shot to combat, but if all the other weapons clear away whatever is engaged with you, then you can shoot the Blast weapon. So, yeah. I think, actually, it feels like that they've done some progressive work in the rules tinkering stage, which I'm excited by. And I think... I don't know if it's going to make tanks amazing... I don't know how much of that was actually.
It won't be that whole system of someone tagging your tank and then you're like, well, there you go. So like, whenever I played Death Guard players and they brought the big plague tank thing, it was always just if I can tag it with something.
The plague burst crawler.
Yeah, it's just like there you go. It's ruined for a turn now because I've just put something in combat with it, and it's going to hit them on a 6. Good luck.
Yeah, I think. I think. I don't know if it's going to have much of a major effect. I would say that the thing that I am most interested before we get to it is going to be the morale phase. They touched lightly on it, but I am fascinated as to where the morale phase is going to go because it looks like I think it's going to be a more comprehensive change than people realise. I think it's going to be a bigger deal than people have really engaged with.
Because at the moment, unless you're playing with a unit of grots and you've lost 2 models, that's the only time I've ever lost models to morale. It's very unusual that anyone seems to lose anything. There's no consequence to it, and it's just like, why does it even exist?
But they've said it's going to be. They touched on it as being a thing. I think they're being a bit cautious about telling people about it because
it might upset people because it's a bit more of a change than they're expecting, right? Which I'm hoping for, because in other games, you lose stuff and it's gone, and you just accept it because that's what happens. They're not dead; they've run off. Morale is what that is, right?
I think there's honestly going to be. I think it's going to be more sweeping and more game changing than we currently realise. So,
do you think they can introduce the
kill team
same
mechanic
thing as in Age of Sigmar, where you've got your line, and if a model's destroyed, they're gone as well?
Maybe.
For efficiency, because that's something that always interested me.
Well, is there any single ability inside the game to specifically pick out one individual model? I don't think there is, unless anyone has an example. What I mean by that, if anyone's got an example, is where if there's a line of 10 dudes, can you pick out one specific guy? It doesn't seem to be a problem in 4K.
Yet.
Well, not yet. Yeah, I think. Irish Minotaur says, yeah, I agree. They were mentioning stuff yesterday and about unit being fearless. So we might see something there.
Space Marines are really boringly fearless. When you roll it's like, as long as I don't roll a 1, oh look, I rolled a 1. Re-roll because I'm Space Marines. So
well, I think if you've got you don't rely on it. Like, I mean, my game with Owen yesterday was really important. Like, I had a low bravery unit that got engaged. Their combat went badly. Then they got beat up by a unit that also reduced my fear by a little bit, my bravery by a little bit. And I had like 7 dudes out of a 20-man unit run away. It's actually a big deal. You know, it was like 75 points of that unit just ran away to the bravery. So I think I'd like to see something being done with it, but I think that whatever they're going to change is going to be a really big deal.
It needs to be carefully done, though, because in 7th, morale could quite often punish you. When it was your turn in combat, you'd get hit first, you'd then fail miserably, and then half your team would run off because they were low morale.
Yeah, I think they might do something where you have to do break checks, like if your unit is reduced below a certain amount, and then...
Because there's no force morale, and that's something that in traditional wargaming, if you've lost over half your army type of thing, there's something happens as a result. Like it happens in Lord of the Rings. You then have to make checks once you've hit a specific kind of level, and I think that should be reflected maybe in the battlefield.
Yeah, and Sergeant Rolf, thank you for also mirroring what I was about to say. You also need to be careful about not making the person lose even more. They did say that there was some sort of dynamic that allowed an army that was losing to pull it back more. They did mention that on one of the shows. They said that there wouldn't be quite the snowball. The problem with morale being like Sergeant Rolf says, being a factor is if you're already losing more is worse, right? And that seems like in a traditional war game, obviously that's fair. Like some tanks roll over your position, just start blitzing all the dudes. They've won. End of conversation. But in a game, you would want some sort of mechanic, and we saw that introduced in League, right, John?
Yes.
They had a swing back mechanic quite a few years ago now, maybe. Do you remember that
stuff like the plates on the towers and stuff? They've made it so that it's less easy to just push one direction specifically as well.
Yes. So I think
which is almost the Alpha Strike prevention thing, almost, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah. Like the old night fighting. What if in turn 1 everyone is -1 to hit in shooting? Do you know what I mean?
I think a lot of the battle zone stuff will become important if they're doing that as a way of playing. If you're playing on a specific table, you have those specific rules that will impact it. Because if you played any of the, I think they're called war zones or whatever in the Vigilus book, there is things like there's a snow one where you're -1, and there's one where everyone's ranges are shrunk down to 12-inch range. If you're having to play on that kind of board, that completely changes how you're going to play that game.
Yeah.
And you're not just going, right, I'm going to shoot my big las cannons everywhere, job done.
Yeah, I think anything that can neuter first turn alpha strikes are a positive. Like, especially if they have issues with trying to but we'll see. We don't know how much more significant the changes are. I'd like to talk about something that came up. So any questions in the chat? I'd love to hear them today. We're just generally talking about what we've seen so far. But I do have an Age of Sigmar thing which I'd love to talk to you about, which I think is very fair, specifically because I wrote it into a pack yesterday, so I'd like to talk to you about it. But I'll take questions first. If that's okay with you, John? Unless you got anything more you want to say on it.
No, not really. I'm pretty easy going.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
You know me. I'm very reactive. I'm like a sponge. You give me information and then I'll just spout something back at you eventually.
All right, good. Elp says, why not have every unit have a morale points value, a bit like power? Then once this hit halfway, you'll have to make a break checks. Characters and elite units will bring more morale points to the army. However, when you die, it will be the shocking hit it should be. So I think there's something to be said for. We'll see. I think it's going to be a lot more than we traditionally know it as, the morale phase. I'm very excited about the Assassinate Secondary rule for my Raptors, which is Raptor Space Marines. I can understand that, like sniping. Pew, pew, pew. I'm really excited. I can't wait to start army list building and start
at the
picking
moment, I'm in that
secondaries.
limbo.
Yeah,
I keep looking at lists and going, well, they'll be different points. It'll be a completely different game. There's no point me even looking at a list. And I'm getting that itch now where I'm just like, I normally, as a chill, at the end of the day, sit and just churn out a couple of list ideas and just develop that. And without that, I'm just like, what do I do?
Yeah. I also hope I don't have to paint a load of different orc units. That's kind of my worry.
I feel like buggies might get some play because of the mobility, and if they're not having to suffer a penalty for shooting only the heavy weapons, that could be useful. I don't know. That's my gut feeling at the moment. But
again, it goes back to that conversation. Elite stuff is good in an elite game, and shit stuff is crap in an elite game. And the buggies suck, right?
They're all right. They've got some place to. They were actually quite playable just before the lockdown, but that was the problem. We didn't quite see it happen.
Yes, I think that's
so. Like the Scrapjet one, the rocket one, basically, and the Shock Jump Dragster were appearing in tournament lists. The two that I actually have lots of and we're playing with. So.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
I think so. Especially as they seem to have gone vehicle-centric for orcs, I guess. But we'll see. So questions were any prediction for the first 9th edition codexes? Well, obviously it'll be Marines
and Necrons.
And Necrons. But what do you think it'll be after that?
I think Custodes.
Oh, really? What, the first book?
I think it's one of the early ones because there was a shipping manifest, probably 3-4 months ago that
Oh,
said Custodes 2.0 as a book name, and I don't think that was the Psychic Awakening book.
oh,
'Cause they
okay.
tend to be very kind of on the nose with their names for the shipping
Shipping.
manifests. So I'm hoping that's got Sisters of Silence in it as well.
Oh, I think the Psychic Awakening book that we'll see this weekend will give us good
Yeah.
indication as to that.
Yes.
Um, and Tywin says, I thought they said Death Watch were getting reworked right away. So you might also see the Death Watch.
Yeah, they said something about them getting an entire new book, I think.
I think it's pretty harsh for Chaos that they just had a book.
Yeah.
Like
And
before
it was a 2.0 half-assed version as well.
it was
Not
a
like the
crappy
Space
book.
Marine one where you went, here you go, here's a load of new toys that are
Yeah.
broken.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think also like I guess also like it seems odd the parity, especially if you look at AC and 40k. You obviously had when they did the indexes at the start, they were like Imperium, Imperium 2, right? Okay, Xenos, Xenos 1, and Chaos. Yeah. And it's definitely unbalanced in Age of Sigmar when you've got like Destruction. I've only got a couple of battle totems. But
Yes.
I think I would love to see. I don't think I need to see the Imperium fleshed out more. I would like to see Xenos fleshed out more, and
Right.
potentially even Chaos fleshed out more, if that makes sense. I would like to
Like-
see.
Traitor Guard, Dark Mechanicus, all these different elements of Chaos that could just flesh it out. I know it's just a parallel, like an opposite of an Imperium thing, but just having them there would be cool, right?
Oh yeah, but there's just not as many, right? And also like. Make Kroot great again, says Tywin in. Yeah.
I would love to see more auxiliary armies for Tower rather than just being here's a load of stupid suits. I want the weird alien races to be shoved in. Like,
Yeah. I want to get
when did
freaky
you last
and
see
weird.
Vespids on a table?
Yeah, I want to get freaky and weird, and I'm really hoping that the Blackstone Fortresses like models are like an example of what we're going to see. I want them to get freaky weird. I want to see new races, new new codexes. I want to see new integration.
On Monday's 40k daily, they did basically a non-show to a lot of people because it wasn't about rules. It showed a lot of the artwork.
Yeah.
They said one of the big inspirations they had for the artwork was 3rd edition. There was this image that had a Kroot warrior, a Necron warrior, and a load of other things like a Harud and some other different alien races. And they were like, it was this kind of thing that got people thinking. They've done something similar with a new bit of artwork, which has got a load of weird-looking aliens. I'm like, hopefully that's them kind of going, right, we need to try doing some new races. Because it's been a long while since there's been a new faction as a whole that isn't just a rehash of something that's been in the background for a long time, right? Like Custodes. I suppose Sisters of Silence were kind of not really a fleshed out thing. Custodes, at least, was a term we knew of. Admech we knew of. Genestealer Cults is an old thing.
I mean, we need only look what they've done with Necrons. They haven't released a couple of new Necrons. They've reimagined Necrons. That's not nothing, right? That's like because I feel like one of the things that they could do with reimagining is Eldar.
Yes, because when you think about some of the sculpts and the approaches to the army haven't really changed in 20 years.
No.
Like the aesthetic hasn't really been progressed. They haven't. I know they're a dying race or near a dead race, but why wouldn't they build some new stuff every couple of thousand years? Just look at how quickly humanity progresses. It's like, why wouldn't they?
Yeah, like I think it would be so fun to see them. I think we're going to see some reimaginings effectively, a bit like what we saw Marines. We saw Marines reimagined effectively with Primaris, and we're still seeing that process. I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see most, if not all, of these things start to be reimagined.
Yes. I have a feeling we're going to have, on the same scale as Death Guard and Thousand Suns, that size release for Emperor's Children and Word Bearers with a book. Not necessarily anytime soon, but that's my gut feeling that's why they've not been given their own separate things already. It's because they're going to give them a proper release like that.
Yeah, I think it makes a load of sense to diversify, even if it's like small model ranges.
Yeah.
Especially like if we said if they're going to try and collect elite armies, like if you had a Word Bearers army, but there was only really 10 potential sculpts in that range,
Yeah.
But I could collect the whole range. Like I'm then going to jump onto the next range. Like I look at orcs and I'm like, well, I
World
don't
Eaters,
currently.
yeah.
Yeah, I currently.
World
I
Eaters is what I
currently.
meant.
Yeah, I currently don't aim. I currently don't own 30 looters, and then I don't own 30 tank busters, and then I don't
Yeah.
own. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
I still keep adding. Whereas custodies, like you said, 2 dreadnoughts, a couple of dudes on the field, some bikers. I'm off you go. Like, and I can start playing that army. Yeah. Give me a berserker model, and that's not of legal drinking age.
I don't think they're going to just go, here's new berserkers. They'll release it as part of a range, right? Because that's what they did with Black Legion last year. All the generic chaos stuff, that was enough of a release that it wasn't just here's one kit. I don't think they're going to just drip feed us one kit at a time anymore.
No, I don't think so. I think we're going to see reimaginings.
And it'll be with a book, because they want to sell us books, right? Because there's a section of the company that relies on selling a book.
Yeah. Sorry again says, big question, would you prefer a new Xenos race or reimagine the pre-existing ones? I think I'd like to see the current ones reimagined.
Can I say both?
Pick a side. Stop fencing, you big bootlicker.
No, because to me, I'm like, can we just have a new thing, like maybe doing Exodite Warriors, so reimagining something old, but then doing something completely new as well, but only doing part 1 releases, like the way they've done AdMech in like 3 stages. So that you're not just drowning in new stuff, but you can kind of work on it and get more.
I feel like the AdMech releases, like especially like if you look at the AdMech releases, I feel like if more than anything I've ever seen were reactionary to issues that the army had. I don't think I've ever seen
stuff that was missing, right?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a release of stuff that was quite clearly indicated to problems within the codex. Mechanicus being slow and having no transports.
No transports. That was always the thing. People went, where do we get a transport then? It's like, here's a transport there. Where's our flyer? It's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, so then they got then they got tanks, transports, flying units, and dog units. They're like, cool, we've done that. That's the most reactive I've ever seen them in the model range. Whereas the other stuff, I haven't seen them being overly reactive. And
they're cool. They're very. You can see they're trying to do something a bit different. They could have quite easily just lent into the whole Servitor style of stuff, right? They could have had just essentially destroyers being a cavalry unit, but instead they went somewhere different.
Yes, yeah, they did. So apparently Angron is coming out in the new starter box. Check my channel Saturday for the scoop. Says Dude Day.
I've been hearing rumours about him since like the 90s, so I hold out very little hope.
There's no way a Primarch's going in a starter box.
No.
Angron, who'll be a Demon Prince of Khorne, is going to
be an 80, 90 quid model by that point.
Yeah,
they're not going to just throw it into a starter set unless it's a £300 starter set.
And we already know it's 120 quid, and we already know what's in the box. So we don't have to worry. Hello to Dreadwoods. I've made you a beautiful profile pic. Thanks very much. I did ask if anyone has got a profile pic or some sort of pic or screen grab. I need a new profile pic.
I stole one off of Facebook for you, Rob. I'll send it to you.
I changed mine up to support Black Lives Matter, and now I'm going to change it back to support my face.
I could draw you one for £25, Rob.
Thanks, but no thanks. Just for today. Anyway, that's basically what we got time for. I thought we were going to talk. I was going to talk about 3D modeling, as in the board space in Age of Sigmar, but I don't think we've really hit it. So, has anyone got any questions? That's the other thing. And also, don't forget to join me tonight live on. Get ready for this. Live on Mini Wargaming. I'm being interviewed by Dave of said fame. So I'm kind of excited about that. Just because Dave's a super nice dude, and I can't wait to have a chat with him and also engage with a different audience. So I'm really looking forward to that.
So that's in 5 hours time then?
Yeah, 6 p.m. BST. 6 p.m. British summertime, which is
that's a good question.
What?
Will Forge World be more commonly accepted in the new 40k?
It should be, because it's written by the same studio. There shouldn't be an issue.
I have a gut feeling that as close to release, we're going to get indexes for that stuff, because they're not just going to give us the rules, right? They're going to make us buy something for it.
There'll definitely be indexes. absolutely for the Forge World stuff. But I'm hoping they get reimagined as well. They get integrated into the codexes better.
I'd love that, but I'm kind of not feeling too hopeful based on the Psychic Awakening. Kind of that switch and bait that we're all like, oh, Exalted Demons, and it wasn't. But it could still happen, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think we might see. Like if you're going to take an Exalted Demon of Tzeentch, wouldn't you then use the Forge World model? Is that not? Am I being wrong about that?
The only reason they might not is the reason apparently they justified it before, which makes some sense to me when you kind of hear it, is if you're in a Games Workshop shop, kid comes in, bought a book from you last week, goes, where do I get this model from? And they can't buy it from you. It's kind of an end of a sale. So I get that as a side of it, but I don't feel that's justifiable in it making it a separate thing completely. But I can see that's maybe the reasoning.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. I see why. I see why what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's weird that they've never just sold Forge World in the shops. Just sell it. Stop being weird about it. So Colonel Cabby says, I indexes suck. I play Dark Eldar. Do I have to buy a whole index for the 2? I'm hoping the app, fingers crossed, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
I'm hoping in the app, this is what they do. All data sheets are free.
Well, they always have been. It's the other bits, right?
Yes.
Because you get them with the models, so you've always got the data sheet, theoretically.
Theoretically, but in one place. All data sheets free on the app.
I think that needs to happen.
Yeah. Doodle Showcase says, do people still get weird about using Forge World stuff? I haven't seen that actually for ages. I'm not exactly at the bleeding edge of compared to 40k though. I don't think it's even a bleeding edge. I think the problem with us as a community a lot of the time is we have a lot of hangovers and we don't necessarily where they come from. Forge World bad really comes from Forge World were just making up rules about whatever the fuck they wanted with no oversight from the main company during the time when the main company wasn't engaging with the audience. So everyone was like, fuck this. Yeah. So there's that, and then there's also, like John pointed out, the shop conversation. So, but then as a community, because we don't really ever often have a singular place where we get our information from, and if it is, our singular place is Warhammer Community, and as we've seen before, they're quite often, if not outright lying, they like to obfuscate what they're trying to say or any facts or problems that might be existing. So they're not a reliable source. So we don't have like what's the get-go? And also, get 2 wargamers in the room, they can't agree on the colour of Abaddon Black to save their life. So,
it's a grey, Rob.
It's actually all of the colours. It's actually all of the colours as one colour. That's why it's black.
Actually, it's the absence of colour. Because if you add all paints together, you make brown.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I did not know that. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure, John. Thank you for talking to me today.
Yeah, it's been all right.
Oh, only all right.
I've enjoyed it.
Rude.
Yeah. Well, I've got to keep you modest, Rob, because if you start thinking you're doing great, you're going to get a bit above your station, and next thing you know, you're going to be cutting your mats up again.
North, you never replied to me on Facebook, Rob. You're not the only one, Sunshine, but I will send you a message in a minute.
There is a Facebook message from last night, Rob. It might be the same guy. I left it because it was to Rob, and it said something really nice. And I was like, he's got to see that occasionally. I can't just keep deleting them.
No. Oh, no, I'll reply. If you had to start a new army for 9th, what is it? John, if you had to start a new army for 9th, what would it be? Final question.
Battle, because I've got the box set of them that I've half built and half painted and half-arsed.
No way would I ever do that. I like Sisters of Silence. Sisters of Battle, no way. Gross.
Yeah.
Well,
it's subjective,
I would go for...
like all good things.
The haircuts. That's what's my problem.
Do you not like them? Thing is,
I've never been in. Let me tell you, this has got nothing to do with the fact they're wearing power armor. I think that's rad. Nothing to do with their women. I think that's rad. I've just never been a fan of 2 things: bowl cut and fringes. Just not into them. Never. Like if ever I went on a first date with a girl and she was rocking a bob, I was like, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. Like,
I'm looking at it from a sentimental standpoint as well. That I remember being around when they first dropped, and it was like, oh, these are really cool. These are like power armored women, and it didn't matter what the hair was like. It was just they were cool. And so I've got that weird kind of lens of sentimentality around them that kind of just makes me think they're cooler than they are. Perhaps I don't know.
I would say. I think I'd like to do chaos, like out and out,
Wait,
like.
Stop being on the fence, Rob. What kind of chaos? Which specific god?
Oh. Like Thousand Suns are cool, but like.
Screw all that edging, right?
Yeah, like. Fuck that. Like, no way. I think I'd like to get super weird about it. I probably would go for Dark Mechanica-esque. So a lot of the Demon Engine sort of style,
Cool.
like Helldrakes, that sort of thing. You know,
Venom
I'd
crawlers.
go Venom Crawlers, all that sort of stuff. I think that would be fun. Or Death Guard. I did have a Death Guard army, but there was a robbery a couple of years ago in the studio, and I lost my whole Death Guard army. Sad face. So I wouldn't mind going back to doing Death Guard at some point, but I'm not
think they're in a
recommitting.
solid place, but they're not exactly the most exciting prospect, I suppose, right now.
No, I think they just need what has happened to Mechanicus. They just need more stuff, really. You know, just need more things. The chat said Sister Silence, aka Great Swords. Yes, yeah, you know.
Yes, they look great.
Apparently, I'd suit Emperor's Children. Not sure what that means. Will they bring squad?
Well, because you'd be screaming as you shot people with sonic weapons, right? You'd be like, ah, look at this is great. And everyone would be like, shut up, Rob.
To be fair, pink is also a fantastic colour. Rob, that's my word eaters have berserkers and robots. See? Yeah, I'm into that. That's what I'd do.
Nice.
All right, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Namaste to
Pleasure as
everyone.
always.
I'm on live again tomorrow with a very talented young man called Sam Morgan. He is talking about his parodying games, John.
Yes, that's what he said to me, and I went, cool, I'm going to Google what that means. Because I've got Rona brain where I'm just like, everything seems really complicated right now.
Yeah, well, I'm hype. I'm hype about that conversation tomorrow. So please do join us for that. So that'll be again midday tomorrow. You can join me online later tonight. We'll talk Dave. Join me tomorrow night with two of the greatest show hosts I could have ever hoped to have met, Nikos and Tom. We'll be talking 40k, and obviously you can join me every day all week. You can find John Scrivens on Twitter and get some custom artwork done by him. Thank you to everyone who listens to the podcast.
I'll see you on Saturday.
Yeah, you will. And thank you to everyone on... I think I've double booked Saturday. We'll talk after. Thank you to
I think you have. Yeah, I know why.
Thank you to everyone who is on the Oswego Patreon. Again, I don't want to bang on about it, but honestly, I literally couldn't do what I do without you. And for the price of a cup of coffee or a sandwich, you guys support me to do this full time. So you guys are wonderful, as well as everyone who subscribes on Twitch. So thank you, all of you. Breakfast battle tomorrow is going to be Hayden. And then Friday is Obeyed. So I'll see if I can kick those lizard men in the teeth finally.
I don't know. It depends which kind of lizard, right?
Oh, yeah.
But what kind of jam sandwich are you having, Rob? Is it a cob, a roll, or a bap?
I actually eat with my hands straight out of the pot.